So, there I was, Jenna, just cruising through the local park, headphones in, blaring some old school rock. The breeze was nice, and it was just one of those perfect days for being lost in your own world. I'd just wrapped up a coding sprint for the new app one was developing. Working from home has its perks, like no one cares if you're in your pajamas at 3 in the afternoon. As I was rounding the bend near the old oak tree, that's when it happened. Out of nowhere, I collided with what felt like a brick wall, sending my phone flying and ripping my headphones out. I barely had time to register the surprised yelp that matched mine. "Oh, crap. I'm so sorry," I blurted out, scrambling to my feet, brushing dirt off my jeans. The brick wall turned out to be a guy, probably around my age, with a shock of brown hair and a kind of sheepish grin that immediately put me at ease. He was already picking up my phone, checking if it was okay. "Hey, no harm done, but maybe watch where you're dancing next time." He chuckled, handing back my phone which, thank God, was still in one piece. "Thanks, and yeah, I guess I got carried away with the tunes. I'm Jenna, by the way," I said, still a bit embarrassed, but relieved he was cool about it. "I'm Jake. Seems like you've got a killer taste in music," Jake said, nodding towards my phone. We both laughed it off, and I noticed he was holding a frisbee. "You play?" I asked, gesturing to it. "Yeah, was just about to start a game with some friends, but they bailed." "You play?" "Not really, but there's a first time for everything, right?" I shrugged. It wasn't like I had plans, and he seemed like good company. "Cool, let me show you the ropes then." His smile was infectious, and honestly, I was already curious about him. We spent the next hour tossing the frisbee, chatting about everything from our favorite bands to our jobs. Turns out, Jake was an engineer at a local tech startup, which gave us tons to talk about since we were both in the tech field. It felt so easy, like chatting with an old friend. As the sun began to set, Jake glanced at his watch. "Hey, you hungry? I was gonna grab a bite at the cafe across the street. Join me?" I was actually starving, and I figured, why not? "Sure, let's go. But just a heads up, if they have chili fries, I'm not sharing," I warned him playfully. "Huh, challenge accepted. Let's see if their chili fries are worth the hype then," he said as we started walking towards the cafe. By the time we said goodbye, it was clear this wasn't going to be just a one-time thing. Jake asked for my number, and I gave it to him, feeling that buzz you get when you know something good just started. After a few months of dating Jake, things were going pretty damn well. But like every romantic movie where the sun's always shining, there had to be a cloud somewhere. That cloud, in my story, turned out to be Linda, Jake's mom. "So, you're finally going to meet my mom," Jake said one Saturday morning as we were having breakfast. He had this half-smile, half-wince thing going on. "Just a heads up, she's a bit intense." "Intense like how?" "Like secret government conspiracy intense or believes in aliens intense?" I joked, trying to lighten the mood. "More like reads your horoscope and judges your life choices intense," he replied, shaking his head. We drove over to Linda's house later that day. It was one of those perfectly manicured homes you see on TV shows, where you know something's too good to be true. Jake knocked, and the door swung open. There she was, Linda, in all her glory, wearing a flowery dress that screamed, "I'm the boss here." "Jakey, and you must be Jenna," Linda said, eyeing me like I was some specimen under a microscope. Come in, come in." The living room looked like it was ripped straight out of a 1950s home decor magazine, complete with a giant bookshelf filled with all sorts of astrology books. I kid you not, there was a crystal ball on the coffee table. Linda wasted no time. "So, Jenna, when's your birthday?" she asked, as soon as we sat down on her floral couch. April 17th, I said, a bit thrown off by the sudden interest in astrology. "Aries, huh? She frowned, flipping through one of her many books. "And Jakey here is a Pisces. Not the best match, astrologically speaking. You do know that, right?" Jake rolled his eyes, giving me a sorry about this look. "Mom, come on, not everyone believes in that stuff." But they should, especially when it comes to important life decisions. Linda shot back, giving me a sharp look. You see, Jenna, Aries are headstrong and impulsive, and Pisces are dreamers, sensitive. It can lead to conflicts, you know. I wasn't sure how to respond. I mean, who goes full psychic mode 5 minutes after meeting someone? Well, we've been getting along just fine so far, I managed to say, trying not to offend her but also standing my ground. Linda hummed disapprovingly, tapping her fingers on her astrology book. We'll see about that. Life's not just about the good times, dear. The rest of the visit was pretty awkward. Linda kept dropping hints about ensuring compatibility and watching out for the retrogrades. I couldn't believe the stuff coming out of her mouth. Jake was super apologetic on the drive home. Sorry about that. She can be a bit much, he admitted, looking genuinely embarrassed. A bit much? Jake, she basically said we're doomed because I'm an Aries, I said, trying to laugh it off, but honestly, it stung a bit. Driving back, I mulled over everything. Linda was definitely a force to be reckoned with, but I wasn't about to let her or her astrological charts dictate my relationship. I liked Jake a lot, and no amount of bad star alignment was going to change that. So there we were, a year into this whirlwind, and somehow, despite all the cosmic crap Linda tried to throw our way, Jake popped the question. We were at our favorite pizza spot. Jake got all nervous, which was funny because he's usually Mr. Cool. He slipped the ring box across the table right as I was about to dive into a slice. Jenna, will you marry me? He blurted out, almost knocking over his drink. I was so shocked I nearly choked on my pizza. Hell yes, I managed to get out once I stopped coughing. Everyone around us started clapping, and I was just there, all teary-eyed and laugh-crying. Planning the wedding, on the other hand, was anything but beautiful at first. Trying to make a guest list and figure out a venue was stressful enough without Linda's constant input. You know, Jenna, Mars is in retrograde around your wedding date. That's really not a good sign, Linda warned one afternoon, while we were looking over some flower arrangements at my place. I rolled my eyes so hard I thought they might stick that way. Linda, we're not picking a date based on Mars, Mercury, or any planet. We're picking it because the venue we want is available then, and it's special to us. The wedding day finally came, and despite Linda's dire predictions, it was perfect. Sunny skies, not too hot, not too cold. All our friends and family were there, laughing and having a good time. Even Linda managed to put on a smile, though it looked a bit forced. After the ceremony, during the reception, Linda pulled me aside. Her expression was serious, which wasn't surprising given our past chats. Jenna, I still think you should reconsider this union. You might be happy now, but what about when the stars shift? I had just about enough at this point. Linda, I'm married to your son now. I'm not reconsidering anything. We're happy, and that's what matters. She huffed a bit, looking around as if the answer was going to pop out from behind the wedding cake. You're ignoring the signs, Jenna. But remember, I warned you. Duly noted, Linda. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to dance with my husband at our wedding, which, by the way, is going wonderfully despite the bad signs. Jake caught my eye from across the room and gave me a thumbs up, knowing all too well the conversation I'd just survived. We spent the rest of the night dancing, laughing, and truly enjoying every moment. Life after the wedding felt like a sweet dream, but as with all dreams, reality has a way of creeping in. Linda's relentless comments were that reality for me. Every time we visited, she'd have some snarky comment ready. One Sunday afternoon, we were at her place for what I hoped would be a peaceful visit. No such luck. So, Jenna, Linda began as she served the tea. Still no good news on the baby front? You know, I read that some people are just cursed. Bad energy or something. I almost choked on my tea. Linda, really, that's not how it works. We've seen the doctor, everything's fine. These things take time. Time, huh? Or maybe it's just not meant to be. She shrugged, sipping her tea like she hadn't just suggested my uterus was cursed. I was fuming, but Jake squeezed my hand under the table, a silent plea to keep my cool. Changing the subject, I mentioned our latest big project. Actually, we've been house hunting. Found a great place, and we're thinking of putting down an offer. Linda perked up, her interest obviously piqued. A house, huh? And how are you affording that? Jake's doing well, but houses aren't cheap. I was proud of our independence and financial stability. Actually, I've been doing really well with the app development. We're putting in equal amounts. She scoffed, setting down her cup a little too hard. Well, isn't that convenient? Living off my son and now spending his money on a house. It's classic, really. We left soon after, but her words stung. It was the same old song, no matter how hard I worked or what I achieved. The house buying process was a breath of fresh air compared to dealing with Linda. We found a beautiful place, perfect for us, and moved in a couple of months later. I thought owning our new home would prove to Linda that I wasn't the gold digger she painted me to be. But instead, it just fueled her fire. At our housewarming, which Linda attended out of familial obligation more than anything, she pulled me aside while Jake was busy with other guests. Must be nice, living large on someone else's dime. But we both know the truth, don't we? Just make sure he doesn't find out about your little side flings, she hissed, glancing around to make sure no one else could hear. I stared at her, shocked and angry. What are you even talking about? I've never cheated on Jake, and I never would. How dare you? She just smirked and walked away, leaving me there, fuming. Later, I heard through the grapevine that Linda was spreading rumors about me being a freeloader and cheating on Jake. That was the last straw. I confronted Jake when we were alone. Your mom's saying things, awful things about me. I don't know how much more I can take. Jake was furious. She what? That's it. I'm going to have a word with her. This has to stop. He did, and he told Linda she needed to back off or she wouldn't be welcome in our home anymore. She didn't take it well and called me the next day, furious. You're trying to cut me off from my son, you witch. I know what you're up to, bringing men into the house when Jake's gone. Don't think I don't know. Her words were like venom, but they didn't hold any power over me anymore. Linda, believe what you want, but I'm telling you now, stop spreading lies about me, or you'll regret it. This is my home, and I won't be harassed in it. Things had quieted down since we limited Linda's visits, but calm in my life seems to be just the quiet before another storm. This new trouble started innocently enough, just a feeling that something was off. It began at the local grocery store. I was loading bags into the car when I got this prickly feeling on the back of my neck, like someone was watching me. I glanced around and caught a glimpse of a man at the far end of the parking lot. He was just standing there, staring. It was weird, but I brushed it off as paranoia. The next sighting was at the cafe down the street from our house. The same man, sitting 2 tables away, pretending to read a newspaper, but clearly watching me. My heart started pounding. Was I being followed? When I saw him a third time, just standing across the street from our house, that's when I really freaked out. This was no coincidence. This guy was tracking me. I told Jake about it that night. Babe, there's this guy, I've seen him around a lot lately, and it feels like he's following me. Jake looked concerned, but he was trying to be the rational one. Are you sure? Maybe you're just overworked and stressed. Why don't you take a break for a few days? Do some of that yoga you love, chill out a bit? I wasn't convinced, but I decided maybe a break would help. I started doing yoga again, tried to meditate, but that nagging feeling wouldn't leave me. I was constantly looking over my shoulder, jumping at shadows. One afternoon, I had enough. I was going to prove I wasn't imagining things. I went to the same grocery store, and sure enough, there he was. This time I confronted him. I walked straight up to him, my phone camera ready. Why are you following me? Who are you? The man looked startled, then tried to walk away, but I was too quick. I snapped a few pictures. I've called the cops, I lied. He stopped, a look of panic crossing his face. Wait, listen, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm a private investigator. I'm sorry, I can't say more. In the evening, we ran into him again in the parking lot of our house. Jake confronted him, grabbing him by the collar. You better start talking, or I'm calling the cops right now. The man finally broke. Look, I was hired by your mother. She wanted proof of infidelity. I swear, I didn't find anything, because there's nothing to find. Jake called Linda immediately. Mom, what the hell are you doing? Hiring someone to spy on Jenna? Don't come to our house again. You're not welcome here anymore. The next day, Jake was all action. He had security cameras installed all around the house. If she's pulling stunts like this, who knows what she'll do next, he said, anger lacing his every word. After all the drama with Linda and that creepy PI, Jake suggested something I couldn't have been happier about, a vacation. Just the two of us, away from all the chaos, somewhere I could breathe without feeling like someone was always watching. We ended up at this cozy little beach town, with nothing but the sound of waves and seagulls to keep us company. It was perfect. For the first time in what felt like forever, I could just sit, read a book under the sun, and not worry about secretive glances or hidden agendas. When we got back home, I was brimming with a sense of peace. That peace only grew when I discovered something incredible. I was pregnant. After years of trying and facing Linda's harsh words, it had finally happened. But with the joy came a wave of protectiveness. Given everything with Linda, the last thing I wanted was to put our little bubble of happiness at risk. So, we decided to keep the pregnancy under wraps, especially from Linda. Let's just keep it between us and my folks for now, I told Jake, who was over the moon about the baby. Yeah, I don't want my mom spoiling this with her negativity. We'll tell the world when we're ready, he agreed. Since I worked from home, hiding my growing belly wasn't as hard as it might have been. I swapped my fitted tees for looser shirts, and if I ever went out, I was all about those flowy dresses. But the thing was, my belly wasn't really showing that much. I was past my first trimester, yet there was barely a bump. I mentioned it to my doctor during one of my checkups, trying to keep the worry out of my voice. He gave me a reassuring smile. Every woman's body is different, Jenna. Some show a lot, and some don't show much at all. As long as the scans are normal and the baby's healthy, you've got nothing to worry about. As the weeks rolled on, only Jake, my parents, and I knew about the little life growing inside me. It felt like our precious secret, a small miracle just for us. We'd sit in what would be the nursery, planning and dreaming about the future. I think we should paint it yellow, Jake said one evening, looking around the room. Yellow's nice. Bright and happy, I agreed, picturing our little one in their crib, the walls a sunny backdrop. This little bubble of joy was ours to cherish, and for now, that was all that mattered. Linda's shadow lingered at the edge of our happiness, but inside our home, within our little growing family, we were safe. 8 months in, and my pregnancy was now pretty obvious, no more hiding the baby bump. Jake and I decided it was time to celebrate with all our family and friends, even Linda. I figured maybe if she saw how real and beautiful this was, she might drop her vendetta. We threw a big bash at our place, decorating the backyard with lights and flowers. I felt like royalty, floating among our guests with Jake by my side, everyone so excited and happy for us. Well, almost everyone. Linda arrived late, her face stormy as ever. I braced myself for her usual antics, but hoped she'd keep it together for the sake of the day. No such luck. As I was mingling, I overheard her chatting, well, more like conspiring, with a group of relatives. This is all a show, Linda hissed, not even bothering to lower her voice. Mark my words, she's not pregnant. It's just a ploy to bind Jake tighter and dig into his wallet more. Her words stung, but I wasn't about to let her ruin this day. I approached her, smoothing down my dress, trying to keep my voice even. Linda, can we talk? She looked me up and down, skepticism written all over her face. What's there to talk about? You think you can fool everyone, but not me. I took a deep breath, keeping my cool. I'm really pregnant, Linda. There's a baby, our baby, Jake's and mine. Can't we put our differences aside, just for today, for the sake of the baby? She scoffed, a harsh laugh escaping her. You're unbelievable. Do you really think I'd fall for this charade? Frustrated but not wanting to cause a scene, I tried once more. Linda, please. It's a celebration. Let's just enjoy the day. She snorted, turning away from me and heading upstairs to the second floor of our house. I hesitated, then followed her, not wanting her to spread more poison among the guests. Upstairs, I found her in the hallway, fuming. Linda, why can't you just be happy for us? In a month, you'll see. There's a baby, a real baby. She whirled on me, her eyes cold. There is no baby. You're a con artist, Jenna. Always have been. I felt a mix of anger and sadness, tears pricking at the edges of my eyes. I don't know why you're doing this, but it's going to stop. Turning to leave, I started back down the stairs to the living room, eager to get away from her negativity. But as I took the first step, I felt a sharp shove from behind. My feet lost their grip, and I tumbled forward, the world turning upside down as I fell. The last thing I saw was the blur of the party decorations and the horrified faces of our guests, before everything went dark. When I finally came to, the harsh glare of hospital lights and the steady beep of monitors greeted me. I was disoriented, my body aching all over. I turned my head and saw Jake, sitting next to me, his face pale and drawn with worry. He immediately leaned closer, taking my hand. Jenna, thank God you're awake. How do you feel? Where's the baby? I asked, panic rising in my chest before I could even gauge my own pain. Jake's eyes were filled with concern, and he squeezed my hand tighter. They had to, they induced labor, to save him after your fall. He's on support, but he's fighting. Tears welled up in my eyes, and a sob choked me. Is he going to be okay? I managed to stammer between breaths. They're doing everything they can, Jake assured me, brushing a tear from my cheek. As I lay there, the memories of the fall flashed through my mind, the shock of being pushed, the terrifying tumble, Linda's face just before I turned to descend the stairs. Jake, I said, my voice firmer despite the fear. Linda pushed me. She did it. Jake's face contorted with confusion and distress. What? No, Jenna, it must have been an accident. It wasn't, I insisted, feeling a surge of frustration. Check the cameras. Please, just look. He nodded, standing up stiffly, his movements betraying his own fear and turmoil. After a few tense minutes, he returned, his face ghostly. I saw it, he said quietly. You were right. It's all there on the video. My mom pushed you. His next action was to call the police. I could only hear his side of the conversation, his words clipped, his tone a mix of anger and disbelief. When he hung up, he explained that they were taking his mother into custody. The next few days were a blur. Our son, tiny and fragile, fought for his life in his glass little bed, surrounded by beeping machines and bustling nurses. I prayed every moment I was awake, my heart living in that incubator with him. Linda was charged and brought to trial. Her defense was absurd, she claimed it was all a joke, that she'd wanted to prove I was lying about my pregnancy. I didn't mean any harm, she told the court. I just wanted everyone to see the truth. But the evidence was undeniable. The video didn't lie. The judge sentenced her to 2 years and ordered her to pay restitution. The sale of her house would cover the medical expenses and rehabilitation for our son. Months rolled into a year, and our little boy grew stronger every day. The rehabilitation was tough, endless appointments and therapies. But he was a fighter, and slowly, he caught up to his peers. By his second birthday, you couldn't tell he had such a rough start. Jake and I were a team through it all, our bond solidified through the trials we'd faced. As for Linda, her actions had severed any chance of reconciliation. I made it clear, and Jake agreed, that she was not to be part of our lives or our son's life. It was a harsh decision, but necessary for our family's well-being. And as I watched our son, healthy, happy, and vibrant, it felt like the entire universe had shifted, aligning just for us, in spite of everything. Linda's shadows no longer lingered, all that remained was the light of our little family, stronger and more radiant than ever.
All right, everyone's presentations are done, Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.